Welcome back to Views with Hughes, Agenda Free News. This is Jerome Hughes. Now, let's go ahead and get right into it. So, today we're diving back into Kathleen Kennedy situation. You know, Kathleen Kennedy, the president of Lucasfilm, and the whole Kathleen Kennedy's decision to stick around until the second quarter of 2025, despite the endless failures, despite the destruction that Kathleen Kennedy has put upon the whole Star Wars franchise. And Kathleen Kennedy isn't going anywhere for another year and a half. Okay, so this is something that I also predicted months ago when she announced retiring on a high note and stuff. And now it's coming to pass as I expected. Okay, so here we have Kathleen Kennedy, a figure who has overseen the decline of one of the most beloved franchises in cinematic history. And yet Kathleen Kennedy is still hanging on. Why? Well, it all goes back to those reports that surfaced earlier this year claiming that Kathleen Kennedy would only retire if Kathleen Kennedy had a massive hit in theaters. Now, let's be honest, y'all. That hit never came, and it's not going to come under Kathleen Kennedy's leadership. But instead of just her bowing out gracefully, what we're seeing here right now is that Kathleen Kennedy is clinging to her position, hoping against hope that she can go ahead and somehow turn the tide. Well, we'll explore Kathleen Kennedy's track record as we did before to decide the whole woke agenda that Kathleen Kennedy is pushing. And we're going to see why this extension of the contract is not just a delay of the inevitable, but a clear indication of how deeply entrenched the problems are at Lucasfilm under the watch of Kathleen Kennedy. All right. So when those reports started circulating, reports that, Kathleen Kennedy would just go ahead and just only step down from Lucasfilm if she delivered a major hit. And I knew right then and there that we were going to be in for a long, painful road, because let's face it, Kathleen Kennedy hasn't even been able to deliver a hit in years. Okay, Kathleen Kennedy is also responsible for one failure after another. But instead of just acknowledging these failures and taking accountability and stepping aside, Kathleen Kennedy is deciding to go ahead and dig in her heels. And it's a desperate move, but it's exactly what I expected from someone who has consistently put her own agenda ahead of the fans, ahead of the franchise, and ahead of the whole very legacy that Kathleen Kennedy is trying to protect. All right. And it doesn't even stop there. And we're going to go ahead and get into the core issue here, where the woke agenda that Kathleen Kennedy is pushing at Lucasfilm. And ever since day one, Kathleen Kennedy made it clear that she was more interested in promoting her political and social ideologies than preserving the very essence of Star Wars. And let's be honest, what has that done to the franchise? Well, Kathleen Kennedy used it and destroyed it, plain and simple. I mean, I couldn't explain it further than that. But we're also going to start with Disney Plus shows. The Mandalorian. First two seasons were excellent. It had a promise, where it really did, but it didn't take long for the show to devolve into bad storytelling in season 3 under Kathleen Kennedy's watch, with a lot of cameos, special guests that weren't even needed or wanted. Now, sure, it had some good moments, but as it went on, it became more clear that the focus was shifting away from storytelling. And then came the Book of Boba Fett. And what a disaster that was under Kathleen Kennedy's leadership. You see, Boba Fett was supposed to be the classic character we all love. Boba Fett, one of the most feared bounty hunters in the galaxy, was reduced to a shadow of his former self, turned into a big joke to fit the whole new narrative that Kathleen Kennedy wanted to push. Okay. And then, of course, there was the Acolyte. Okay. And then also Ahsoka, even Willow. Now, the show Acolyte was aired and it was canceled, but everything we've seen and heard about it screamed disaster, especially with Kathleen Kennedy at the helm. And Leslie Headland, who's the close associate of Kathleen Kennedy and former associate of Harvey Weinstein, was running the show, and she basically put like a lot of woke ideology that's done so much damage already to the franchise under Kathleen Kennedy. And Kathleen Kennedy was supposed to protect that, but instead of focusing on the rich history of the galaxy far, far away, this show was basically pushed themes that have nothing to do with Star Wars, what it's supposed to be and what it's all about, all under Kathleen Kennedy's guidance. And it's not about storytelling. or good storytelling, while that it's about pushing a political narrative that Kathleen Kennedy had prioritized, and that's why under Kathleen Kennedy the Acolyte was canceled. But it doesn't even stop with the Disney Plus shows, okay? There was also the films, okay? It wasn't just the Star Wars films either. Just basically all the films made on Lucasfilm, including Star Wars and Indiana Jones. And after the catastrophe of Rise of Skywalker that only made $300 million apology for divisive The Last Jedi, Lucasfilm, under Kathleen Kennedy's leadership, hasn't even managed to produce a single successful Star Wars movie. And also, there's also Solo. Now, of course, y'all remember Solo. It was the first Star Wars movie to lose money at the box office. And why? Because instead of just focusing on telling a compelling, engaging story, Kathleen Kennedy and her team were more concerned with taking the right diversity woke boxes and making sure the film aligned with their ideological agenda, which is something that the fans didn't even want, or at least the OG Star Wars fans. So what is actually Kathleen Kennedy's legacy at Lucasfilm? Her legacy is a big failure. Under Kathleen Kennedy, her leadership, the Star Wars brand has been devalued to the point where many lifelong fans who grew up with Star Wars, who lived and breathed it, have simply walked away. Now, the magic, the wonder, and the excitement that Star Wars used to bring has been replaced with divisive woke politics as well as shallow storytelling, all driven by Kathleen Kennedy and her vision. And this is just my opinion. The numbers also speak for themselves. If you look at the box office returns, look at the merchandise sales, look at the declining viewership on Disney Plus with the Star Wars shows, you'll see for yourself. It's all there in black and white, a testament to Kathleen Kennedy's failure. Okay. Yet, despite all of this, Kathleen Kennedy is still staying on until 2025. Why? Because Kathleen Kennedy knows that if she leaves now, then she'll be remembered as this person who ruined Star Wars, okay? And not to mention, Kathleen Kennedy knows where the bodies are, where the higher ups put them. Now, Kathleen Kennedy is hoping that by sticking around a little longer, she can go somehow reverse the damage that she has done and try to salvage her own legacy and ride off into the sunset with her head held high. But let's all be real here. There's no coming back from this. The whole damage is too great thanks to Kathleen Kennedy, and the fans have had enough. And no amount of time is going to change that reality for Kathleen Kennedy herself. All right. So this shouldn't come as too much of a surprise to us at all. And what does it mean for Lucasfilm and Disney as a whole? Well, for one, it's not good, and Kathleen Kennedy is at the center of it. But of course, Bob Iger and Disney don't care about it. And Disney has already felt the impact of Kathleen Kennedy's failures on their bottom line. And now the Star Wars brand itself, which was once a guaranteed moneymaker, it's now a liability, largely due to Kathleen Kennedy and her own decisions. Now, the parks aren't even drawing the same crowds. The merchandise isn't flying off the shelves. We had like the different attractions closed from Star Wars, and the shows and movies are flopping left and right under Kathleen Kennedy's watch. Okay. And with Kathleen Kennedy staying on until 2025, we're likely to see more of the same things, more divisive content, more failures, and more damage to the Star Wars brand, all driven by Kathleen Kennedy. But this isn't just about Kathleen Kennedy. The future of Star Wars is bleak. All right. The future of Lucasfilm is bleak. It's about the future of Star Wars also. And as long as Kathleen Kennedy is in charge, that future looks bleak, and the creative stagnation of the whole ideological focus and the alienation of the core fan base. It's all going to continue as long as Kathleen Kennedy remains in control. And the longer it goes on, the harder it's going to be to fix what Kathleen Kennedy has already broken. Okay. But let's also just, take a moment to imagine what could have been, without Kathleen Kennedy at the helm. You see, if Kathleen Kennedy had stepped down earlier, say after the debacle that was the Rise of Skywalker, we might have seen a very different trajectory of Star Wars. Now, imagine a world where Jon Favreau or Dave Filoni were given full creative control, free from the constraints of Kathleen Kennedy's agenda. And also imagine, the stories that honor the legacy of George Lucas, okay, and that thrilled and inspired, that brought fans together instead of tearing them apart, okay. All without Kathleen Kennedy and her interference, we could have seen a resurgence of Star Wars like we've never seen before. Okay, have Kathleen Kennedy not been in the way. And that's something that would have kept all the fans as well as bring all the fans back. But instead, we're stuck with more of the same under Kathleen Kennedy's leadership. More failed projects, more divisive content, and more damage to the franchise that we all love, or at least loved, all because of Kathleen Kennedy. And the saddest part about that, if it didn't have to be this way, with the right leadership, with the focus on storytelling over ideology, Star Wars could have been great again. But as long as Kathleen Kennedy is still in charge, that's just nothing more than a sad pipe dream, okay? But the fact of the matter is, Kathleen Kennedy's extended contract and extended stay at Lucasfilm is just another chapter in the long, sad story of how Kathleen Kennedy has mismanaged and destroyed Star Wars franchise. And it's a story of Kathleen Kennedy putting ideology of wokeism over storytelling, of alienating the fans who made Star Wars what it is, and of ruining more of the most beloved franchises in history into the ground. All under Kathleen Kennedy's watch. But here's the thing. While Kathleen Kennedy may be sticking around until 2025, the end is near for Kathleen Kennedy's reign. Or so we hope. The fans have spoken and they've had enough. The failure of Kathleen Kennedy's leadership is plain for all to see, and no amount of time will change that. Now, when Kathleen Kennedy finally does leave, it'll be up to whoever takes over to pick up the pieces and try to rebuild what Kathleen Kennedy has torn down. That's if Bob Iger doesn't sell it. Now, it's also going to be a long, hard road, but there's still hope. Hope that Star Wars can be saved, hope that Lucasfilm can be great again, but it's not going to happen as long as Kathleen Kennedy is calling the shots. I mean, we could probably get that with Jon Favreau with what he can salvage together, but not even sure about that. But only time will tell to figure out what's next for Lucasfilm. But one thing is certain, Kathleen Kennedy's time at the helm will actually be remembered as a dark chapter in the history of Star Wars. And when Kathleen Kennedy does finally decide to leave, it'll be up to us, the fans, to hold the next leaders accountable to demand better, as well as to make sure that mistakes that Kathleen Kennedy made will never be repeated again. So let me know your thoughts about this in the comments below. Also, be sure to include any additional thoughts you may have this particular topic. If you enjoyed what I shared in this video, go ahead and smash the like button and share far wide across social media. And if you haven't done so already and you enjoyed all the content I put out there, go ahead, subscribe to the channel. Click the bell notification so that way you're notified of future uploads and updates. Till then, peace.